Hi everyone, this video is going to walk you through different ways you can analyze or interpret a graph. So all that means is you're basically just figuring out what a graph is trying to tell you. So the first type here is just a line graph. So what you're going to be asked to do in this learning target is identify the different variables that are being compared in a graph. So this is a graph of Sally's cell phone bill for the month of June. So the variables being compared are the cost is on my vertical or my y-axis, and then the data usage is on the horizontal or the x-axis. So let's figure out what story is being told in this graph. Okay, so you're going to be asked to write sentences. What is happening? What story is being told by this graph? The biggest piece of advice I can give you is not to use the word it. Okay, you have to be very specific when you're interpreting what a graph is trying to say. So you're going to use cost and data instead of the word it when you tell your story. So this graph is actually talking about, what is happening to her cost over time. So as her data usage is going up or increasing, so as she uses more data, the cost stays the same, or stays constant would be a word that you might use. So over time, her cost is staying constant, but then all of a sudden, when she hits a certain point, the cost starts to increase. So you might ask yourself, well, what happened to make the cost of her cell phone bill go up so much based on her data? Well, her data, maybe she went over her plan. So maybe she doesn't have unlimited data. So once she hit a certain point of data usage, her cost drastically increased. Maybe she went over her plan or over her limit. So that's the story that this graph is telling. This is another type of line graph that maybe you might be asked to draw or create or even just explain what's happening. So this is the height and time, of a model rocket. So a rocket is launched, and we're figuring out what is happening to the height of that rocket over time. So the biggest thing that I see is students kind of draw a picture of what the rocket looks like, but that's not what this is talking about. So if you look down here, here's all the descriptions of what might be happening to the height of a rocket over time. So let's fill those in about what is going on over time. So here we see the rocket. Its height is increasing, and then all of a sudden the height stops increasing, and the height starts to decrease. Okay, so he's reached its limit of height, and then let's talk about what is happening here. So at this point, the rocket is kind of jumps up because maybe the parachute went out. Okay, so the parachute is open, and the height starts to decrease a little more slowly here until the height is back down to 0. The last type of graph you're going to be asked to look at, probably the most frequently here, is distance over time. So here's just kind of a story of a guy named Tom walking to the bus stop. So we have to kind of create a story about what is happening at all the different segments of this graph. So remember, we're talking in terms of Tom's distance from home over time. So right here in this first segment, this looks to me that Tom is leaving home. So remember, 0 is home. He looks like he's walking away from home. So he must be walking toward the bus stop. But then all of a sudden, something different starts to occur here. Think about what his distance from home is happening. It looks like he's walking towards home because his distance is getting closer to 0. So maybe he forgot something at home. Maybe he dropped something on his way, but he turns and starts walking home. And then here, it looks like maybe he realizes now he's late for the bus, so he starts to run. The steepness of this segment of his height is a little bit more steep. So maybe that tells me that he's running instead of walking. And then this fourth segment is when he has made it home. So the biggest piece of advice I can give you when we're talking about interpreting graphs is look at those variables. What is being compared? What's on the x and y axis here? So is it distance versus time? Is it height over time? Is it cost and quantity? So that's going to be the biggest thing you're going to have to look for before you start telling a story about what is happening in a graph. So good luck to you.